Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone. We are Court and Ob from Dandelion Branding, and welcome to EnvironMental Podcast.
Yeah, this is our podcast where we choose a topic relative to sustainability, and then we spend a few weeks talking about it from a social and environmental justice standpoint.
And we took a bit of a break, so welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, us.
Back us. I think I forgot how to podcast.
Yes, we took a little bit of a break. Ob was actually traveling. She was in the States for a few weeks.
I was there.
In this room, she was. Yeah, man. And we slowed down a little bit. We kind of hunkered down and had to do some other business things that were not podcast world.
Yeah, because we do own businesses.
Yeah, we do. So yeah, this podcast is kind of our pet project. It's sort of a little fun thing we do on the side and on a regular, in regular life, it is definitely a part of our routine, but yeah, sometimes we kind of have to put it down for a little bit. And so that's what happened over the past, I don't know, month.
I think it's been 3 weeks since
3
we
weeks.
posted a podcast. Yeah.
Maybe more. Don't judge us. Just come along for the ride.
I'm not judging us.
Oh, no, I'm not either. No, it was necessary. Everybody needs to slow down every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, pump the brakes. Stop.
Right. So, yeah, but welcome back. If you're interested in learning about sustainability, then subscribe to this channel.
Yeah, we talk about sustainability and we talk about marketing on this channel. That
is true. That is
those
true.
Are the things we
do. So yeah, if you fall within either of those categories of things that are interesting to you, then subscribe.
You're in the right place. Or don't.
Yeah, and so we had planned on we're going to be talking about a book that we read called Water in Plain Sight by Judith Schwartz.
Yep.
This was just kind of the next podcast. We had been talking about water over the course of the last, I think, 2 or 3 previous podcasts.
Yeah, 3 previous podcasts. We had the introduction where we just gave a little bit of information about water. Then we talked about the Flint water crisis. And then we talked about the DAPL and Line 3 pipelines.
Yes, water protectors and the oil pipelines and that ongoing issue. So yeah, we were kind of deep in learning about water, and this book was a really interesting kind of addition to that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was.
It was. So I feel like Water in Plain Sight is a really nice way to look at the water cycle holistically. Judith Schwartz really ties in animals and infrastructure and forests and trees and things into water management and the water cycle altogether. But that's kind of where my feeling about this ends. Like, good job tying it all together. That's very cool and it's very valuable. All of the solutions from this book are massive.
Yeah.
Nothing is like, here's a simple step for you to take.
It isn't that type of book. Yeah. And it's interestingly, like, I think that parts of this book would be so cool for like a high school student to learn about or something like that, or even like, college level to learn about the intricacies of how these things intersect.
Yeah.
And that's so valuable, because that was even sort of a new perspective for us of how these things all relate to each other. But yeah, it was, unfortunately, I think that a lot of the really cool details get lost in an unnecessary amount of additional details about things that.
Yeah, there's a lot of anecdotal stories that feel arbitrary here. which usually I'm a big fan of anecdotal stories. I love them, but here it just kind of felt like it was just to say that we're all part of the problem.
Yeah.
Or like to juxtapose the difference between societies and how even though societies are different, like the issues are similar. I honestly don't know.
It lost me at a lot of those stories. Yeah, there was definitely in-depth talks about different animals in the ecosystem, particularly beavers, which totally I understand the connection to their importance to the water systems and the like environments around waterways.
But it goes into like, stories about beavers.
So that was a something that we struggled with a bit. It was that the really important kind of key details definitely got lost a bit.
The things that we found really interesting, like for me, what I find really interesting is how deforestation, which is something we've talked about before, impacts the water cycle so much. That's not something I like understood before. And it felt like she went through that really fast. She went through these really interesting details super quickly, and then everything else was a story. But we're here to like learn things like deforestation on the coast impacts how storms travel across the land, and how forests hold moisture so that it can rain everywhere in the land. Like deforestation adding to drought is a big fucking deal. And it was like small one small part of a chapter.
Yeah, it wasn't even a full chapter. The entirety of the book could have been about that, because it's called Water in Plain Sight. And like for it to go in depth about how the plants in the world are actually what contributes more to the health of the water cycles and also the health of soil. That is to me the water in plain sight. It is the plants that we see that we we don't see, that we're blind to, and we don't see the full value of like the plant life.
Yeah. And same thing with the cattle, how like the way that they stamp down, I don't really understand that. The way that they stamp down some of the growing things, like infuses the soil with the nutrients more readily. That was also just glossed over. I actually had to like hit back to listen to that part again, because I was like, did I understand that right? Like this is almost a cause for saying like we can do sustainable meat production, and not only could we, but we should, and we should utilize that. That's like one of the very few notes I actually took, was like we should be utilizing our agriculture and our like meat farms as ways to also enhance the soil of the areas that need it. This kind of holistic management is incredibly helpful. But I felt like I had to like dig and listen to every single sentence in order to like get the point, these like very specific points here.
There were the specific points about that holistic water and land management were spread throughout, and that and it's so easy for folks to kind of get lost in the in-between. But like I mean, understanding the intricacies of how plant life and that degrades, and microbes and bacteria in the soil, how that aids in water retention in the soil. And then also it's what makes a healthy water cycle. And like that, I've never really thought of it that way, that like one note that I wrote was that 80 to 90% of continental moisture comes from plants. which makes sense. I suppose, yeah, on some level, like I kind of knew that, but like the point of her telling that particular data point was like, when we take away plant life on land, we're increasing the likelihood of like storm clouds and rainwater to move elsewhere, to kind of for rain to actually go over bodies of water rather than on land where we actually need it. So it's like, it was such an interesting fact of like, when we, I don't know, it's kind of an unseen circumstance. No, consequence. Sorry.
Unforeseen circumstance.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We didn't like think
I didn't
about
put that together when we were talking about deforestation. I definitely thought of like, we're losing the plants that help to build oxygen and help sequester carbon from the atmosphere, but it's even more than that. It's like we are damaging the ability for the ground to hold water. And so now the issue is that we don't necessarily have a water problem. We have a keeping water in the ground problem. Because as we build more infrastructure, more streets and things, that just contributes to water runoff. And then it gets, and then it's picking up particulates and pollution and things.
The ocean, and then there's only like, at what point is there only rain over the ocean? Because the idea is also really interesting to me, that we talked about it in the first episode, that there's never more or less water, that there's always like the same amount of water moving through the system in some way on the planet. But this makes sense as to like why it's only in certain places.
It's becoming less usable by humans because of these things. Like, there's it's the amount isn't changing, but it's getting wasted by going into places that aren't actually helpful.
And it's not like there's no rain, there's no because there's no like mode of transport. To me, that's a crazy way to think about it. Like, trees as a mode of transport for rain, just think about it in terms of like the canopy. Like the rain can't travel over nothing. It can't travel over dry, because that makes perfect sense. The dry air comes up and then like
dissipates the clouds.
The cloud is, that's why, a desert's a desert. That's incredible. It's incredible.
And I didn't really think that like misusing water actually contributes to desertification. Like, but it does. She went on a whole topic about how irrigation systems actually negatively affect the soil's ability to hold water, and that in ancient civilizations, like mismanaging water and using weird irrigation systems is like what contributed to their downfall.
That I like heard her say that, but I didn't fully understand it. I guess I kind of do. It's sort of like, I guess I understand it in terms of plants. It's like that time we learned about wine plants and how when you irrigate the top of the soil, the roots don't grow deep. So so they don't pull and share nutrients throughout like all of the soil. So the plant isn't as healthy.
Yes. And also the soil isn't as healthy. And when it rains, then the rainwater sits again on that top level. And it doesn't fully absorb throughout the soil.
I see.
And then that causes soil soil loss, because there's now water
like
runoff.
Hydrophobia in the soil.
And like I didn't, there were so many details that I like, kind of blew my mind that we're like way scientific in terms of talking about how plants give carbon like for nitrogen from the microbes in the soil. It was like, I felt like it was learning plant biology in a way that I never have before.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating, but like it was so glossed over. It was unfortunate, but
yeah, like that's the stuff I wanted to know, but so much of the like, then I had a friend who's this guy and he's a scientist that does work in this other place, and what he's working on is this other stuff, and I talked to him about this.
And when we spoke, we overlooked this, and yeah, it was like, what? Like I had to Google a lot of these phrases and things that she mentioned throughout the book, like microbial bridge, which is that relationship that plants have with the microbes and them giving nitrogen. It's like this nutrient relationship. That's a phrase I've never heard before. She used a lot of phrases that I had to search for externally, that I thought was a missed opportunity.
Like she could have used all of the extra words that she was using to like try to make it more accessible, to actually make it more accessible.
Yeah, it was like a huge missed opportunity to have a more educational resource than a story.
I feel like I like secretly learned a lot, but mostly just learned about like, I don't know, her friend group, her network. Like, I'm sorry, Judith Schwartz, you're brilliant. I don't care about your network.
Right.
The facts that you gave were incredibly valuable, and they're valuable in the scientific community. And that totally could have just been enough.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. Just like explaining something and then defining it for people like us who don't know the science words, you know? And then also the other thing about it not being accessible for me was that there were no solutions that like the individual human could do. Great. Now I know that deforestation actually causes drought and water cycle crisis, and that us killing beavers is fucked up because we need them to help with waterways around the Midwest and the North. But like, those aren't problems that we can take. Those aren't solutions. Those are problems, but they're not solutions that we can take to other small business owners or other individuals and say, hey, here's something that might help, you know?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, my main takeaway was that like, you know, there are farms and there are people that are doing this, that are creating agricultural systems that work within a healthy like water cycle, and you know, that help to have help with the soil health, and then thus have more nutrient rich and higher yield of crops. There are farms that are doing that, but and so like, okay, is my takeaway to just like search for those?
Right.
I guess that is kind of what I'm left with. I would like to
find them and give money to them.
Unclear a little bit, but I don't know. Is that sustainable? Even like, is that scalable? You know, like, is that something that we can incorporate in larger scale operations? I don't know that. And I don't believe that was touched upon. It was just sort of like, here's an issue. And like, there are people that are doing it better. And like, when they had 11 inches of rain on that farm, their soil was totally fine. And it was able to like soak up all the water versus a traditional farm that got 100% of plant loss or crop loss because of they got flooded out. All their plants got flooded out. Whoa. Okay. That's awesome. That's a crazy fact. That's a crazy fact.
What's this? What?
Right.
What do I do with that fact?
Can that farm talk to that farm?
Yeah.
Are you facilitating that conversation?
But like, but what can we do as individual? Like, if you're writing a book that is supposed to be accessible and easy for the average person to read, that poses a lot of problems, there also needs to be a solution and resources for the individual to be able to take on. We read another book, the soil book. What was that one?
Yeah. Let's look.
And it was a similar thing.
Farming for the long haul?
Farming for the long haul. Yeah. That one, like, it was a similar issue where he was like, here's a bunch of big problems. But each step of the way, he gave like, use the no-till method, or here's another way of farming, or if you have a little garden in your backyard, you could do it like this and make sure you're working with the pollinators. Like he kind of went over the top with examples of how the individual could make a very small difference. But for me, that made the difference between like loving that book and being overwhelmed by it. And it was just like, great. Water crisis is a bummer I can't do anything about.
Yeah, and that is such a common issue with when folks start to learn about sustainability, that you get this eco anxiety, and this dread and this like overwhelming feeling of helplessness.
This book is not for those with eco anxiety. It should have a trigger warning on
it's
the
not right. And I think and that is just a reality that we like are dealing with right now with like so many folks who are in the sustainability realm, who are trying to find solutions. Like it's a it's a hard fight to fight.
It is. It's probably the real reason why we took a break, because this topic, water, is hard, but just like learning about sustainability is kind of like one bummer after another. Like we have pretty much systematically fucked up this planet for our own like survival in all the ways.
Yeah. And yes. And we're not looking for pity or anything like that. But like, yeah, that is a reality that like that has happened. Of course, it doesn't mean that all hope is lost. And there like it would be too much of a cop out to just be like, well, we're screwed. But it is easy for brains to go that way. And yeah, absolutely, we were feeling that. And so taking a break is a necessary part of kind of guarding your own energy and that feeling of overwhelm and yeah, so that was necessary. So if you are somebody who's researching sustainability and is feeling that way, then we feel you, and we totally get that. And
just set it down for a minute.
Yeah, it's okay to take breaks, but yeah, there are still positive things happening in the world, and there is still like not all hope is lost.
Yeah, more than ever, there are resources and people working on this, but it's a relatively new fight that we've taken up, and like we're human, we're adaptive, we'll get there. It's the governments don't move as fast as we need them to. That's a reality, but that's why it's important for all of us to take steps wherever we can. But
pretty much, yeah. So yeah, this one definitely left us with that feeling of like, okay, now, yeah, we don't have solutions for this topic just yet. Or potentially ever. Other than
the reality is like we need to plant trees and treat our planet like it's our home, and stop using water where we don't need it. And yeah, like those are massive things to be focused on as an individual.
Yeah.
So Yeah. Joining causes, I think, is going to be the way to go, with like banding together and to do like bigger work is probably the answer for this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're bigger problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're, um, there's only so much that an individual can do, right? Like
Totally.
when, right. How can we stop deforestation in the Amazon? That's one challenge.
Today.
Okay, but then the water issues that result of the deforestation that we weren't able to stop, like that poses an entirely new level of challenges. So
Right. And that's a 20-year problem at least. If you plant a new tree today from the one that you cut down, like it's going to take 20 years or more to get to that spot. And if it's not a native plant, it could take longer and it could be less effective. Like primary forest and native forests are native for a reason. They help balance a water cycle. And I thought that was a really interesting point from this book too. So like, I guess
yeah.
plant native plants.
Plant native plants, yeah. Stop using pesticides, stop using like chemical ridden fertilizers. Yeah, try to use natural processes to help build your soil if you're home gardening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
it.
yeah. And we hope that, as this information kind of gets out there, that there are better ways and more effective ways to produce crops. Hopefully more farmers will take that up. Like,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. We just hope that they can see the results, right? Like if it's like
Mm-hmm.
like healthier plants, more resilient plants, better yields when there's biodiversity happening and healthy
Yep.
soil
Yep.
versus, yeah,
Well, you could just keep adding chemicals. That's pretty
yeah.
much where science is moving now, though, is like just add this chemical, add this one, you know.
They're
Oh,
trying to like do it like Western medicine, right? Where it's like treating a
which
symptom,
also
an
doesn't
individual
work.
system. It doesn't
Yeah,
work. No, it
which
doesn't
also
work.
doesn't work.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. That's yeah. It is
Yeah.
not an effective, not a holistic way of
Right.
healing anything. It is treating individual symptoms and not the root cause of anything at all.
Totally.
And that's how that's how we have been looking at yeah, at agriculture thus far. And so yeah, we certainly hope that that changes, because there are better ways.
Sure are.
Yeah. So would you recommend this book?
Medium.
Hmm.
Mm, maybe to the right person, but not really.
Yeah, I mean, if you were studying like holistic land management, then totally. Yeah,
Sure. You could
sure.
also get there's also a lot of name dropping, so you could get a
That's true.
lot of other people to look into from this book.
Totally. There was a
Yeah.
really interesting list of like historical examples of people talking about deforestation and then resulting lack of water from like back in the 1800s that I was really surprised
Yeah.
by. So
Yeah. There's a
that would,
lot of resources that are
mhm.
here.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, something that we just got to continue talking about. And
Yep.
so yeah, that's what we took away from the book. Medium recommendation, but really interesting. I mean, from the tidbits that we, could sift through, what rose to the top were some
Mhm.
pretty good tidbits.
It's like panning for gold a
We
little
were
bit.
panning for gold, and there were a couple nuggets.
Yeah,
There were
yeah,
a couple nuggets. I
yeah.
appreciate the bits that I did learn,
Yeah,
but it took a lot of time to get there for sure. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So
Cool.
yeah, we're digesting and learning more and more about the water system, and Yeah, I think that, I don't know, I don't feel done talking about this particular topic, but I also don't know what, yeah, maybe we'll look for additional resources and things for next time.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to walk away with some, like, maybe just do an episode on like what can you do as an individual in a dry place or in a wet place. You know,
Yeah.
like probably like Courtney's in California, they're in a drought. There's wildfires right now, and I'm in the Netherlands, and it's been the rainiest season ever. So probably the recommendations on our sides of the world are different, and I want to know, like, or maybe they're not, and I want to know that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned for those resources coming your way. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye.